In this video, I'm going to show you some of the tools and techniques that I used or have used in my acrylic paintings. I apologize in advance for my croaky voice. I lost it completely about a month ago and it's still recovering, but I thought you'd still want some videos here, so I'm recording another one. So at this time, this painting was done about 20 years ago. So at this time, all my paintings were done with these colors. I used burnt umber and ultramarine blue all the time, and I used that to make my blacks and also to vary other colors. I usually added a phthalo blue, though I'm not sure I did for this one. And for this one, because of the purpley flowers, I added dioxazine purple, which I didn't use that often, but you can't get that color with the other colors that I've got. This is a cadmium-free red light. I would have used the cadmium at that time, but I'm no longer using cadmium colors, and these work just as well without the toxicity. Cadmium-free yellow light. So those were the colors I used all the time with, of course, titanium white. And that would have been all I would use for this painting or for any of the others that I've done. So at this time I was painting very detailed and many, many layers. This painting would have taken me at least 3 weeks to do, and it's only about a 9 by 12. I would have used this type of brush, a number 5 soft synthetic, and I would have used that for the entire painting, probably the same brush for the entire painting. And then I'd probably still use it for another painting or two before it hit the end of its robe. I would have probably added a number 3 of the same type of soft synthetic for things like these little stems, for the finest details and around here. And of course, palette knife to mix my colors, and I would have used a stay wet palette to keep the colors a little bit damp so I could work with them longer. The grasses, I may have used these brushes, but I also may have used a straight brush. I'm not sure. I can't quite remember, but I'll show you the straight brush in the next video because I did switch to that for a lot of the techniques. This painting was done about 10 years after the previous one. With the first painting I showed you, I, at that time, was washing in my main colors, drawing it out very detailed, and then just going around each section, washing in the main colors. By the time I did this one, I'd switched up a little bit, and I was drawing out the image and then catching most of the important lines with black felt pen, and then washing the whole surface with one color to give it a unifying start, plus it would add that first layer and save a little bit of time. And then I'd go in and I'd change and add little dark areas and wipe out little light areas. Still working on the base coats, I would have gotten my colors in with a soft synthetic brush, just quickly laying in, still transparently. And in some areas, as you can see right here, I used a sponge. And I sponged under the underlayer first, and I might have even used the sponge like this, just to get some various texture. And this whole area right here, the next layer would have gone in with a sponge and more opaque paint. So aside from this one, I would have also used a slightly larger one at times, and I would have used this brush again, which was my go-to for acrylics almost all the way through, and still is. And I occasionally would have added the small one for fine details. By this time I'd switched to probably a size 6 most of the time. Even for small areas, just kind of using the tip of the brush. And all of those textures can be created by flattening out the brush when it's wet to get fine lines, and by just using it a little bit rounded when you need to. These little hairs would have been done with something like this that would do them several at once, rather than just painting every individual hair. When it came to the background, I would have mixed up all my opaque colors that are just very subtly different, and I would have painted the whole thing and then let it dry, and then I would have gone again, just really thin layers. And that's how you can create soft edges in all these places. By this time, I had switched out my burnt sienna, and instead I was using a Mars black because it's just a blacker black, and it in mixtures tends to act like a really dark blue, so I don't find it to be a flat black. And all my warm colors I can get by using my cadmium red light. So I didn't need the burnt umber, which can be kind of a dead and dull color. This, of course, is cadmium-free red light. At that time, I was still using the cadmium, so they work just the same. Cadmium yellow light. And again, my two blues more than likely, though I don't know with this one if I did use phthalo, maybe just a little in the eyes, but the ultramarine blue and, of course, the titanium white. This painting is about 12 by 24 inches. And again, working on the fine grain Antwerp linen canvas, the same as I did on the previous painting. Though I still use the same tools and techniques I showed you for the last painting, when I do detailed acrylics, this one was quite different, and I wanted to loosen it up and add some more vivid color and play around with some different textures. So I started out by base coating my entire canvas, and this is a cotton canvas, so a little coarser weave, and it's a gallery wrap canvas as well, so it doesn't need a frame. And I used first a big brush, soft synthetic brush, to paint the whole canvas and around the edges. And I did that with red oxide, which is a really opaque, kind of a ruddy brown, and I really like that. And then I mixed up various colors that were quite similar using the red oxide, this color called medium magenta, and cadmium-free red light. And I mixed a variety of colors that were just subtly different, and I went in and played around with texture. And I used this cake decorating tool, I used my palette knife, and I even used this big putty knife. And I just covered the whole canvas with that texture. And then I went in with a bristle brush, and that was important. It's a different kind of brush than I had been using for the other paintings, and it's a coarser brush. And I also didn't have my paintbrush ever sitting in the water. If it was not being used, I would put it between damp and pieces of paper towel. So I just went in and drew this horse just with the black. Again, that's Mars black. And I now use golden and Liquitex paint pretty much interchangeably, whatever happens to be available or easiest to get at the time. So I did just the basic blacks first, and then I went in gradually lightening the colors. And at times, palette knife, throwing in different textures, mixing different mixtures of gradually lighter colors. So again, working in layers like I had before, but instead of being so subtle with the layers, they jump more extremely. And you can see touches of phthalo blue and ultramarine blue in there. And I would have used some cadmium yellow light, cadmium-free yellow light in there, and of course titanium white. And for the detail in the eye, I would have gone in with this, again, this soft brush, doing the detail in the eye and a little more detail in the nose and mouth, and then just leaving everything else really rough. Some of these pieces were just a stroke with a knife. And the acrylic lets you go in and do that after the paint is dry, and you can always recoat with the red oxide if you wanted to. So this one was a fun and very vivid painting, just for a totally different technique. Still combining some of the detail work, but adding a little bit more texture and loosening it up quite a bit.